Good evening, everybody. The Board of Appeals is meeting tonight, Monday, August 26th, on our continuance of GM3 LLC. We do not have to read any notice because it's a continuation, so we're going to invite you to come up and let's discuss what is going on.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you. Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. Ruth Silman with Nixon Peabody. Thank you for your time this evening. I'm here on behalf of the applicant. We have one odd thing that came up at the last minute, which we do not think is a big issue. It has to do with the name of the applicant. And I submitted a letter to the board today. In going through the Secretary of State's process to establish the limited liability company, we were informed that the proposed entity JAM3 LLC was not allowed. I haven't had this happen before, but apparently there are only so many letters and numbers that can be in combination. And so we would like to officially request that the name of the applicant be JAM Enterprises 3, LLC. Pursuant to the Chapter 40B regulations, because we're still in the pendency of the application, this is not technically a transfer, it's just a request to amend the name of the applicant, so we don't think anything further needs to be done. I do apologize for the hiccup, but we get little surprises from the Secretary of State every now and then. So aside from that, we also did submit the signed purchase and sale agreement with that entity, just so that it's official in the record. And we did review the draft decision that was prepared by Mr. Bellavance and had only one comment regarding the description of some of the exterior components of the siding and facade in condition number 9. But again, we thought that was a very minor revision to the decision. So we'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for all of this. So on number 9, what we're going to do is it's going to read, the building and units in the building shall conform to the architectural plans. Changes to the exterior building materials shall be subject to review and approval by the PCD. The exterior of the building shall be comprised of stucco and fabricated panels, period. We're going to delete that next sentence and just leave in vinyl siding is prohibited. Is that fine with you?
That would be fine, thank you.
And the enterprise name change would just be where it's listed. I think it's only listed maybe once or twice.
It's only, I believe, in paragraph number 1 of the procedural history and also in the ray line just above that of the decision. So just to add the word enterprises between JAM and the numeral 3.
I'm going to give the board just a couple of more minutes. I know that we've all looked this over just to make sure we don't have any other questions, but it seems pretty well buttoned up at this point. So just give us a minute.
Of course.
Through the chair. We had discussed at our last meeting, or maybe the one before that, the parking and how many parking spaces were going to be provided at this building, and the fact that the developer owns the adjacent parcel, which is where Sonic is, and how many spaces they had. And I'm not exactly sure what the required amount of parking is. If you could refresh my memory in terms of what you have in what you're proposing and what you have at Sonic and what is required there. But we were considering potentially having the developer lease essentially to himself, but the different entity, just in the future, if you were to ever sell off the restaurant, there would be this lease in place where you were leasing parking spaces from Sonic to the new entity, which I guess is Jam Enterprises 3 LLC, to make up for some of the parking shortage that you'll have at the new development. So I'll leave it to you if you can just let us know, educate us a little bit in terms of what's there for parking. Is this a possibility? Because one thought I had was that if we do that, do you still have enough parking at Sonic? Do they have to be uncompromised spaces, or could you lease these spaces for visitor parking, or, you know, for, I think some of the bedroom, you've got 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, and 3 bedroom units. All the units have at least 1 parking space, I imagine, and then there's going to be some that are going to have 2. But then there's not going to be a ton of visitor parking. So I just want to throw that out there, see what you think about that as a potential condition that you might be able to live with.
Sure. So let me explain what the requirements are under the zoning ordinance, and then the relief that we're seeking, and then we can speak to, you know, kind of the practical issues of kind of what might actually happen at the site. So under the zoning, multifamily dwellings require 2 parking spaces for each dwelling unit, plus 1 visitor parking space for every 3 dwelling units. So applying that to our development, that would be 120 spaces for the units themselves. So 60 units times 2 is 120, plus an additional 20 parking spaces for visitors. So that's a total of 140 parking spaces. We are proposing 91 parking spaces, okay, which instead of the ratio of 2 spots for every unit, it's 1.52 for every unit. And we were not, kind of, that doesn't account for the visitor spaces. So there are fewer, and we are seeking a waiver through the 40B for that. But again, and, you know, I don't know, Greg, if you want to kind of address this, what we're finding in general is that some of the older ratios with respect to the number of cars, things are actually changing a little bit in terms of people's needs for parking and the number of spaces that are required. The site, as you noted, you know, the Sonic is next door. That's, you know, at night, clearly people are not parking there, so it is potentially a place where we could consider that. And so, you know, I don't know if you have any kind of, if you want to add anything to that.
Yeah. Hi, Greg Monastero. So a couple things, the entities, just so you know, so it's Jam Enterprises owns the upfront, Jam 3 is the secondary. On the spots, if you look at it, they said the 1.5, there's a large portion of 1 bedroom. So when you take that formula and we thought we were pretty comfortable. We do have on Hotel Road, just south of the property, we own several spots there that are actually sits on the corner of next to the hotel. It's probably about 10 spots there. There will be parking there. Then up on the top side, the whole back row that's on Sonic now, we're deeming that to there. There's about 20 spaces up top. I still have excess. That's where it separates the property. Nope, it's excess. It's excess. What it is it actually bridged the properties when we subdivide. It sits on the back. So we just want to make sure that that parking, we didn't want people coming up over the top. We wanted to make sure there was easy enough access. So we'll look at the landscape and layout design. Then along the hotel side to the north of my property, there is all excess parking right there. There's probably another 10 or 15 spots. So we have ability, and we do want to make it comfortable. We'll see when the lease up goes. We're going to work with Wind Property. That's who's going to be managing the property. So we'll come in and we'll do the final design and look at what we're doing, and then we'll accommodate. We don't want to have shortage on parking either to make it difficult for tenants.
So if you add up all of those excess spaces, what are we looking at in terms of the number closer to that number that you would need
I probably have another 25 to 30 spots that we could look at. And again, future development, what we decide to do, what Sonic does very well. It's a fairly large parcel there, so we don't know, we might do different things with the property over time. Sonic, self-contained drive-through, the spots up front along the highway, and really the stalls is all that they use, including for the employees.
How many are required to be at Sonic?
Oh, we have way over. So, yeah.
Sort of my point, so because you have more than is needed, and I'm just thinking in the future, if you were to ever decide that, this is worth it, for whatever reason you want to sell off, the parcel, whichever one, I think it would be beneficial to the new, let's just say it was this property that you're going to sell, for that owner to have those spaces. Right now, it's easy for you to say, well, I've got these spaces and I can use them because you own them. And I think, I'm just thinking down the road,
Yep.
if you don't, and I think we have an opportunity now to sort of make sure that, and it seems like it wouldn't really make that much of a difference to you because you're gonna use both, but down the road, I'm thinking that.
Yeah.
Down the road, I think it would make sense for subsequent owners to have more parking, and this just seems like, it just seems like this would be the opportunity to capture that, because if we don't, then I think it may never happen, and we could run into a parking shortage. I don't think it's going to be an imminent issue, but I do think it could be something down the road, so.
Should it be a condition, or could the signage say parking is available for whatever, the address? Or do you want to actually condition it?
I think we should, we should discuss it. I mean, I think we might as well condition it, because I don't think it's going to cause any problem, and I think it's only going to make it so that there's less of a. Exactly. I mean, but if the board doesn't, feel that way and agree, then that's fine too, but it's just.
If I may, maybe a couple things you have to understand on this. So this is myself and my wife. This actually sits into a family trust. These properties, once developed, this is one of multiple buildings we're doing. These are not entities that we look to sell. They're actually going to go into a long-term family trust, and then my adult children actually will stand behind. The future that we look at, Sonic does very well. We look in the future to do further development in there. So it's quite potential, and I've discussed it with Ruth, is if this is very successful, this apartment, we may come back and want to do additional work there. We've had interest from other restaurant groups, and we might try to do something with retail. This would end up enhancing and having more parking space. Eventually, we have multiple drive-through lanes and exits there, so we can look at it. I don't see it being a problem, but I want you to understand our long-term. We've had this now for 10 years. This is what we're building for long-term for my, quite candidly, my children and grandchildren for long-term. This is not hit-and-run type investment for us. There's no reason to do it, especially in a 40B. There's really no reason to take them and sell them.
Questions for clarity's sake. So the other about 35 spots you said you could pick and choose from, those.
Safely, 10 to the south of me,
Yep.
between there and what's on Hotel Road, and 15 behind. So you're about 25.
About 25.
I'm telling you I have excess, but again, this is the same way they wanted me to have excess. When we first opened 10 years ago, there was completely different configuration. Now it runs the stalls and the upfront restaurant, and that's how it runs.
Now, is that just an area that could fit parking spots, or are they actually going to
Parking.
be lined spots?
If you come around the back of the, and
Yep.
sorry, I don't have a graphic for you. When
okay.
you come down through the stalls in Sonic in the back, there's actually a strip of parking that separates. So where the fire hydrant is, there's a strip of parking right there.
Okay.
So we can see how that grade works out and how we have the parking there. And then along the wall, that was always meant to have additional stalls, and we left it for excess parking.
And is that already on the Sonic side, or that's on your new hotel side? Or your new
It's on the
complex?
Sonic side, so it
Oh,
would be
okay.
on parcel A, but
Okay.
I don't have a problem if we wanted a set that will allow for, 15 additional spots for guest parking as a lease, that's fine.
Okay,
I would
that
just
was
say
my
that
confusion.
I'd
I
like
just
for the
wasn't sure
board to
where
be
they were.
flexible. If I come back in the future and want to future develop that site, we would look at the whole parking as a whole as a site. Okay?
I was looking at number, excuse me, 8, is it? 8, and just as, educate me, all right, if I could, through the attorney. On 40Bs, what percentage are applicants are handicapped?
That's not, I mean, we
No,
could
I-
probably
you
go
know,
to the state and try to figure that out,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
it's, in a non-elderly 40B, and of course, elderly includes disabled under the federal definition, it's like any other multifamily
Yeah.
residential. You know, there are requirements for, under the MAAB, the Massachusetts Architectural Access Board regulations, for the mandatory number of either units that can be modified or that are accessible. So the building will fully comply with that.
I would almost like to have one handicap, you know, the part that bothers me a little bit, if it is, you shall make it. Why can't we make it in the beginning? And, well,
Well,
they're going to advertise, and one of them, they could advertise one as being handicap accessible.
Maybe I can offer a little guidance on. So I can just tell you what we have under construction down the street. On a 68 unit, 4 units were handicap. Now, what goes into the handicap units, all of the floors are accessible by elevator. All the floors are accessible. We have 3-foot doors. Those are fine. The other units modified is lower countertops, lower in the bathroom. That becomes a challenge because some people want them a little bit higher. So there were 4. So floors 2, 2, and 3, and that building had 4 units. So of a guesstimate here on the 60 units, we'll probably have 3 or 4 units will be specific set up that way, but the whole building is accessible. So there's different layouts to it.
Okay.
We have seen in some of these that they still rent them out to whatever tenants come, but we actually, by whatever the code is, that's what the architect will design
Okay.
and do.
All right,
Okay?
that's good, thank you.
Motion to close the public hearing.
Motion to approve with the parking condition, correct?
Yeah.
So I'll make a motion to approve consistent with the draft decision that was distributed earlier today by email, and that there will be, just to note, there will be one additional condition, which would be number 36 for parking, which will be consistent with our conversation earlier this meeting, and that there be a lease agreement between the two entities for, I believe it was at least 15 parking spaces for additional parking, which would bring the total of 91 spots up to 106 spots.
So we are now going to take a vote.
Need a second.
Oh, so now we're going to take a vote, a roll call vote to grant this comprehensive permit, subject to all the stated written conditions.
Yes.
Thank you very much. We really appreciate it. We look forward
Thank
to
you.
presenting this terrific project to you. We'd like to also thank staff again for all of their terrific help.
Thank you, everyone.
You, this was very well done. Thank you very much.
Motion to close the public hearing, motion to adjourn.
We need to accept the July 22nd and August 5th minutes.
Oh.
I need a motion.
Okay, that's right. I guess we'll make a motion to reopen the hearing.
Second.
And then we'll make a motion to accept the minutes from July 29th and August 5th.